I'm Austin Lugo.
I'm Andrew Harp.
This is With Nothing to Say.
Let's talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Before we get started today, we just want to shout out to our friends at the Nom Nom Project. This is a project.
It's you.
Well, I mean, yes, it's me. It is me, but it's also my brother-in-law, another Life Through Fiction Productions podcast. It's pretty exciting. It's about the art, culture, and history of Vietnam. My brother-in-law and I are actually traveling there in April of 2022, so we're kind of preparing ourselves, studying the history, the art, the culture, all that stuff. So if you're interested, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts at the Nom Nom Project. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, or wherever you get your social medias. All right, Andrew. So this week I got to pick the movie, and having not seen almost any animated films,
There wasn't a
and
lot of
there
options.
wasn't a lot of options. Anime is probably the genre that I have seen the absolute least of every genre. It's just something I never got into. I don't know why. I guess it was just never on my radar exactly. So I picked an animated film, not an anime, but an animated film, which was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Andrew, could you describe this movie to the listeners?
Yeah, it's a Spider-Man animated movie about Miles Morales, who's a New York teenager, and he becomes Spider-Man. He and other Spider-Mans from different universes have to band together to defeat Kingpin. That's basically the movie, pretty much. Yeah, like you said, there wasn't a lot of options, but this is a movie I have somehow carefully avoided the past few years. I never saw it in theaters, even though people were very excited about it when it came out. And even when it was on streaming, I never watched it. So this is probably a good excuse to finally just go ahead and watch it because I like Spider-Man. He's a good character. He's a good superhero for the most part. I think I'm totally over superhero shit, but I'll watch it because it's been a few years. So
When I was a little kid, my cousin had she had one of those like old school cameras that you had to put like a little like tape in. You know what I'm talking about? Like you had to put a little tape recorder thing in to use because this was before digital cameras, or I guess yeah, because that's not digital. That's something else. I don't know exactly what it is. Anyway, she had one of these little cameras, and I'd go over there every week, and we would shoot little like short films. And the only film I ever wanted to make, like every single week, were superhero movies. Because I fucking love super. I mean, what Sam Raimi's Spider-Man came out when we were what, like 6 or 7? Came out like 2002, 2003.
I don't think I was allowed to watch it until I was a little older than that. But I remember seeing Spider-Man 3 in theaters, but I don't think I saw Spider-Man 2 in theaters.
I think I saw all of them in theaters. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing Spider-Man in theaters, and I just fucking of all the superhero movies, Spider-Man's always been my favorite superhero. I don't know why. I think
He's good.
it just kind of hit. I think one of the reasons I like, I guess might as well talk about all the Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi and whoever directed the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I don't know who that is.
I
Somebody.
forget some no name. The new Spider-Man new movies are also directed by some no name.
John
Um,
Watts.
yeah,
John Watts.
John Watts,
I know
no
that one.
name. Who cares? Yeah,
But the thing I love about Spider-Man and the thing I love about the Spider-Man movies that differentiates it from many of the superhero movies that came out, of course, after it or before it, though superhero movies certainly weren't as common before Sam Raimi's trilogy, although they did exist, just not very common. The thing I love about the Spider-Man movies is they're always contained. They're always just kind of one guy living in New York and he's fighting a bad guy. Like the stakes are never, the whole world's gonna end, the whole universe is gonna end. It's always just like New York, Brooklyn. It's very contained, and that's what I love about it.
well, isn't Spider Verse about the end of the universe? Into the Spider Verse, and like these new Spider-Man movies, you say they're contained, like the John Watts
Hmm.
movies. But like Iron Man like shows up in the first movie a lot,
He sure
and
does.
like Doctor Strange is in the third movie. I know that.
Yes. What I mean contained is that although I've seen all the Marvel movies and I enjoy watching them, I think they're a fun time. I've seen all the DC movies because I love superhero movies, and even though I can grow tired of it at times, and I certainly don't think every Marvel movie is spectacular. I think you compare it to say the other Marvel movie that came out this year, Eternals. It's awful. It's an awful film. It's terrible. The reason that the new Spider-Man movie works so much better, which I know we're not, it's Spider-Man, so it counts. The reason it works and Eternals does not work on any level is because the stakes in Eternals, like almost every Marvel movie, is like the whole fucking world or the universe is ending. Where Spider-Man's just like, we're gonna fight some bad guys and they're here. And yeah, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like the universe is at stake, quote unquote, but Miles Morales is really only fighting for Brooklyn. Like that's what he cares about. That's what it's about New York. It's about Brooklyn, right? He's not traveling across the world. So,
I agree with you on that. Yeah, the whole movie is in New York City, which yeah, that's nice.
but Miles Morales, he's a dude. He's a kid. He's like 14, 15, supposed to be in middle school.
He's like a cool teenager. I would say he's probably a slightly like younger than like maybe like Peter Parker is in like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. You know, maybe like an underclassman. He's cool. He's an artist. His father's a cop who doesn't like Spider-Man. He goes to a prep school who the kids at that school don't like him very much. They think he's a joke, and the prep school is like super hard. And he's like, "Oh fuck, this sucks." And he visits his cool uncle. His he has a cool who has a cool bachelor pad. He's cool as fuck. And they go to a subway station so he can paint graffiti. And while he's there, a spider bites him and he gets powers.
Sure does.
Is that spider from like another dimension or something? Is that the idea? It was kind of hard to tell.
I think so. Yeah, well, I think it's from another dimension because, like, one of the last shots of the spider, it's glitchy. So it must have,
Come from somewhere else.
yeah, in like an earlier, I guess, test of, because I guess they must have tested the like thing, the whatever that puts universes together.
It's like a Hydron collider or something like that. Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
It's a collider. Yeah.
A collider is it's a MacGuffin. Whatever the MacGuffin is, the spider came into the universe. But I love the spray painting scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie actually because it's hip, it's cool.
Yeah, it's a cute scene.
Mahershala Ali, who plays Uncle Aaron, great job. You know he's doing great. He's having fun.
That character's really not in the movie enough, I think.
I agree.
Like I know he's meant to like kind of like disappear and he's like gone and he's evasive, but like
mhm.
I don't know, I don't think he's in it enough
Yeah.
to really like you know, spoiler alert, when he dies, like it's sad, but like I don't know, I just feel like he's not in it enough for me to like really, you know, dig in, but he's all right. It's still good.
I definitely would have liked more of him. I mean, he's very much in the beginning of it, so you kind of expect him to kind of be there because he plays the sort of father figure in Miles Morales' life, even though Miles Morales has a father who's, you know, doing the best he can. He's a cop. He's on the streets. He's on the beat. But Uncle Aaron's supposed to be this fatherly, you know, this other fatherly figure. But after really the opening scene, you kind of don't see him for a while, which kind of sucks. I would definitely love to see more of just him and Miles just kind of like bonding and, you know, kind of going back and forth. And I guess he does go there later in the film to talk to him, which is when he figures out he's Prowler and all that. But I don't know. I think the spray paint scene though is cool. It looks cool. The music's fun. The animation actually. So this is the largest project Sony ever did. It had over 180 animators on it. The animation style is a mix of CG and hand drawn, which they layered over each other. And then they actually ended up copyrighting the animation style, which I didn't know you could copyright a style, but you know, I guess when you're a big corporation, you can copyright everything.
You copyright everything. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is a very unique animation style. Looks great. You know, have no complaints there on that end. Looks good. I'm glad that it's not just straight CG and they put in more effort to make it look, you know, obviously the effect is trying to make like a comic book kind of drawing look, which I appreciate. No complaints there. Looks really good. When there's a battle, they'll do like the pow, you know, like a sound effects. They'll like appear. That's really fun. Yeah, probably the best part of the movie is the fact that it does kind of like I don't know, it just like does a good job of kind of like personifying comic books in an interesting way, which I think is missing from a lot of other superhero movies that are made, that are really bland and boring and grounded to the point where it's like not even remotely fun anymore. Yeah, that's probably the best thing I can say about this movie for sure.
So this is the third time I've seen this movie, and I'm still kind of trying to understand how this world works because the way the film starts is you're introduced to a Spider-Man, but the Spider-Man exists.
Yeah, like you're introduced to the Spider-Man that exists in Miles Morales' world.
He's still a pop culture figure, so like he still has the comic books and he still has popsicles and like all these a cereal. And
Yeah, he's like famous.
I guess, does that mean the comic books in that world are they just like biographies, like just drawn biographies?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. Like, I don't think like they had the comic books before Spider-Man became
Spider-Man.
like it's like yeah, if like you're a famous if you would be a famous superhero in the real world, I guess you would have this all ephemera made of you.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I guess like there already are comic books and items made that you can buy in real life. So I guess they just kind of inserted them in there.
I really enjoy the idea, and I kind of wish they would have played with this more. The idea of fame in superhero movies, or especially fame in this movie, which they kind of toy with, and it's kind of poked fun at, but you never really. What I think is odd is whenever you watch any of the Marvel movies, even though they're like otherworldly beings or have like superpowers, they never really play with the idea of fame or what it's like how they exist in the world. Like if you ever notice, if you watch, especially the modern Marvel movies, I guess the original Iron Man kind of does this, but they never really interact with like normal people or like the rest of the world. Like they're just kind of like off doing their own thing.
A show that does this well is The Boys on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Most of the time that show is about like the superheroes like worrying about being like famous, but they're like superheroes, rehabilitating their images. That's probably the best, at least at this point, as far as I can remember, probably the best superhero media shit that kind of talks about that. I think it does that pretty well.
Yeah. I think The Boys is a very good interpretation of what superheroes would, how they would exist in the world. And of course, the idea of corporations kind of owning the image. And of course, the idea of
Yeah, of course.
the modern influencer, so to speak, would certainly be consumed by superheroes, which they kind of touch on at the beginning here. They kind of move away from later in the film. But there are parts like when Spider-Man dies, because Miles Morales he's bit by a spider. He finds the Collider. And the Green Goblin. I like this version of the Green Goblin. He's just like this giant-esque goblin thing.
So, yeah, they find the Collider and there's a big fight, and Spider-Man in Miles Morales' world is like, oh, you also have Spider-Man powers. Here, take this flash drive. You needed to destroy the Collider. And he's like, okay. And there's a big fight, and Spider-Man dies. He dies.
Did you expect that?
I kind of saw it coming because it's like Miles Morales is like, he has the powers now. So of course he has to be alone, right?
I guess.
Because like that's the thing that's the whole idea of the movie, right? Like you have the perfect Spider-Man, and it's like, this guy's going to teach me everything. I'm going to be another Spider-Man, and of course he has to die. Like
He's too good. He's too nice.
He's too nice. Yeah, and everyone's like really sad. And yeah, Miles is he's like a kid, so he's just kind of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Which, like I said, I like the character of Miles. He's pretty good. Like I didn't sometimes like characters like that can kind of annoy me after a while, but I wasn't annoyed with Miles. I would say I was rooting for him pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. I like Miles. He's just living his life. And he lives the traditional Spider-Man lifestyle, which is, so I guess when we talk about like the John Watts Spider-Man, one of my big problems with it is like he immediately, like even though he lives like in an apartment in New York or whatever, like he has like all this money and Iron Man just gives him like all this shit. But in like this one,
which completely defeats the purpose of
it defeats the purpose. Like Spider-Man's whole thing
is like he's kind of lower class, like working class, like he's not rich. Miles Morales, I don't think he's supposed to be poor. He's more like middle class, you know what I mean?
Yeah, his dad's a cop, his mom's a nurse. She works in the medical industry. I guess it's unclear. She could be a doctor or something. Unclear. But the whole reason he got into the school, because it's a private school, is they do a lottery system in New York. So basically, it's basically like you put your name into like a lottery system with a bunch of other people, and he just has to get in. But that's part of the reason why he kind of feels divorced from that. And I do like that opening scene where he's walking to the school and he's walking by his old school, so you kind of get introduced to what his life is like and kind of how he's kind of pulled out of his community and put in this other community, and he always feels divorced from that. So when that spray painting scene comes, it's kind of him moving back to his roots, like the idea, because he's supposed to read, he's very report on Great Expectations. And so like Great Expectations is right, it's a book about a kid who doesn't have any money, and then this old lady like sees him and she's like, I'm gonna give you all this money, which isn't technically what happens here.
He's given the power and the responsibility of being Spider-Man, which is kind of like having a lot of money, I guess.
Andrew, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. I kind of like, that's the other thing about the movie that's kind of think is kind of fun. They kind of play on like the Spider-Man character and all its cliches and stuff like that. And which I can appreciate. Sometimes it starts to be not funny after a while. But I thought it was fine in this movie. I thought it was pretty funny for the most part. All that stuff, all the meta-y stuff was pretty good.
So Spooderman is dead. Miles Morales goes to his funeral, and they're all wearing like masks. And that's also, they have it's the final film that Stan Lee is in. It's his final performance because he died like a couple months after his recording and before the film came out. And I think it's a pretty good final. It's a good goodbye for Stan Lee. I think it's funny.
It's too bad he was throttled around before he died by his allegedly throttled around and used as like a puppet, allegedly. But yeah, that was cute enough.
Yeah, it's touching. But Spooderman is dead, and now it is up to Miles Morales to become the new Spider-Man.
He fucks up right away, which is great. He like tries to like unlock his powers and try to see if he can do anything. And you have that pretty funny scene where he realizes that his hands are sticky. And he like funny little cute little scene in the school where, he's getting his hands stuck everywhere. And then you have the scene after Spider-Man dies where he's trying to like jump off buildings and stuff, but he falls because he can't do it. Like he's just not very confident in his powers. And, as we talked about, it's kind of funny. He kind of has like the blueprint to do it, right? Like at least he thinks he does. Like he has like the comic book and he's just like, okay, how did like, the other Spider-Man, how did the first Spider-Man, how did he learn his powers? It's like, okay, he went on top of the building and then he did that and he tries to do it, but he fails because like, it's just maybe not the right route that he has to go, right? In order to unlock his abilities and his confidence in himself. So of course he fails a bunch and he decides to go to Spider-Man's grave to be like, yo, I don't know what to do. And I think when he falls too, he breaks like the drive too. And he's just like completely beside himself.
Yeah, Miles Morales, he screwed up. He's like, I thought I had it. Because he had all the literature, he read all the books. This is what they told him to do. Because I guess it seems to me the Spider-Man in this version is the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. It's basically Tobey Maguire. Like that's the story is, right? Because he does all the Tobey Maguire stuff. The Spider-Man that died. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to do it. He's going to jump off a building. He falls. He breaks a goober. He goes to the grave. He's like, I can't do this. I can't be Spider-Man. Classic superhero movie move.
He meets one Peter B. Parker.
The Peter B. played by Jake Johnson. And just probably the worst Spider-Man. Not very good at his job.
They set up so like, yeah, Peter B. Parker is a Spider-Man from another universe who's transported there because of the Collider explosion or whatever. And he's like a schlubby Spider-Man. He's like rotund. He's divorced, and he's depressed and he's suicidal. And they get into the scene where he accidentally like knocks him out. Miles does, and then they go do this thing where, he's got like his like web that they're sticking together, and then they accidentally like hook onto a train. The police are chasing after them, and like this train is just whipping them around and stuff. And fun little scene. That was a really fun scene. Very fast. Animation wise, very fun. And Peter's like, and they meet, and he's like, "Oh, you're Peter Parker from another. Can you like help me?" And Peter B. Parker, like I said, is completely depressed, and he's like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry, I want to die." So he doesn't. No one ever says the word die or kill well, maybe they say kill other people. There's no mention of like suicide, but he's clearly suicidal, right?
Yeah, as suicidal as a PG movie can get, I guess.
Should have been PG-13.
I'd be down with that. I'd watch it. Let's make an R-rated Spider-Man movie.
Why not?
Let's see some blood. Let's see some gore. Let's see some nudity. Let's see some serious, sexy stuff going on.
We need like a Bad Lieutenant Spider-Man, I think.
Andrew, call it Marvel. Tell them we have the next Spider-Man movie.
Yo, have you ever seen Bad Lieutenant? What if you like just had like Spider-Man do that stuff? But no, unfortunately, this is PG, so it's a kids movie. Unfortunately,
It is.
even though they argue for a while about this stuff, Peter Parker agrees to train Miles, but they have to go to Kingpin's company. Yeah, they have to go to like the place that's like developing the technology to steal the information again. Is basically the idea.
Yeah, I think it's Oscorp is the corporation.
Yeah, they have to go to Oscorp and they have to infiltrate it to steal the data again to make the hard drive again. I like that Miles has like different abilities too, which is kind of fun. He can turn invisible.
And he's got the electric shock thing too. It's fun.
I fuck with that. That's fun. It's a little bit different.
Peter B. Parker breaks into the facility. He runs through his whole plan, which is fun. And then he breaks into the facility and Kingpin shows up. Miles Morales is like, I gotta do something. I can't kill another Spider-Man. He already did it once. He doesn't want to do it again. So he's chasing after him. And then they're both in there. And Peter B. Parker's doing his thing. You know, he's been doing this for like 20-something years. So he's got his shit down. He's got it packed down. And Miles Morales is getting stuck to everything. He can't not get stuck to things. And Peter B. Parker's like, you gotta just chill, man. You gotta chill.
Yeah, they're completely bungling it. Yeah,
They're not doing a great job.
It's pretty fun. It's a cute scene. It's a funny scene because they bust in. They're able to bust in, but they get caught like right away.
Immediately, just so quickly. Because Miles Morales, he's still learning the ropes, man. He's figuring shit out. But luckily, Miles Morales can turn invisible, so he's invisible. And then Spider-Man is trying to sweet talk Olivia Octavius, who of course ends up being Doc Ock. And I like this version of Doc Ock because her tentacle things,
They look like tubes.
yeah, they're like tubes, and they can do like they have like different attachments. I don't know how you get the attachments. I don't know how that works, but I think that's fun. Miles Morales, he can't like figure out how to put in the password, so he's just like, I'm just gonna take the whole thing. Like, I'm just gonna take the computer.
Yeah, he like takes the computer and the monitor, and they're like running away. And yeah, she like. By the way, like I will say that this scene, I think it's a good time to bring it up. This scene reveals probably the biggest plot hole in the movie for me. So Doc Ock, Olivia Octavius, she ties down Peter B. Parker and she's like, oh, wow, you're Peter Parker from another dimension. That's cool. Look, like your cells are degrading. Like you're going to die like eventually. So the reason why Kingpin wants to create the collider is that he wants to bring back his dead family members because he got into a fight with Spider-Man and his family saw, and then they drove away too fast and then they died. They got hit by a truck. And he's upset and he wants his family to see his family again. So he's like, oh, okay, well, we can make a collider and then we can bring in like other people, like another
version of his family.
But he's irrational because people keep telling him like, dude, it's going to make a big black hole. Like a black hole is going to, be created and it's going to destroy the world. And he's like, whatever. I'm okay with that. Even if that weren't the case, that family would die again, right?
Because they're brought into this universe?
Yeah,
but Kingpin, I think Doc Ock knows that.
No, she does. Why doesn't she tell Kingpin like, hey, like even if it did work, they would die again?
Because Kingpin's irrational. He won't listen to anybody. It doesn't matter. He's just gonna do what he wants. He doesn't care like if they're gonna die because he's just like, I'll just bring in another one. Like I think his thought is like he'll just keep bringing in families forever. Like, I think that's the idea.
So again and again, he'll watch his like family die over and over. That's better.
I'm not saying it's a good plan. It's irrational. He's sad. He's a sad, sad man.
I don't know. Like, I just think like the Kingpin, like I gotta bring back my family because I'm sad. I understand that like him being irrational about like the black hole stuff because he thinks that whatever, but it just seems kind of silly that like they know that they would die if they're there too long. And also, like, every time they would probably have to bring in a family, Kingpin would have to be like, yo, like, I'm Kingpin from this universe. I know you guys like the Kingpin in the other universe, but my family dies. So you're going to have to hang out with me for a while until you eventually degrade. Like, the plan is just so, like, bad.
But does Doc Ock ever tell Kingpin? Because she doesn't learn until Peter B. Parker.
Why would she not like, I don't understand why you wouldn't tell him, you know what I mean? Like that seems like an important point. Like even if it were successful, they would still die and you would maybe have to use it again.
Well, maybe he's thinking like they can fix that. Like there's some like serum that he can make to like fix it. Because he's not a scientist. He's a big.
I know he's like
he's a rich guy. He's a big rich guy who thinks he could, with enough money, he could do anything.
Yeah, emphasis on big. He's a big guy.
I like the way he looks. He's just like, so he's got that tiny little head and his giant ass shoulders. It's fun.
Yeah, I like him too. I like in the final scene where he's like jumping around like Green Goblin or something like that. Like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't super captivated with like that stuff. Like you can't like think for a second. You know what I mean? Like you can't like be rational for even just a second about this. Like I understand he's upset, but like even if the world didn't explode, it still wouldn't.
What do you think Kingpin should have done? Why is he building the collider?
I know he's upset about Spider-Man and he wants his family, but I don't know. I'm just not like super interested in like the villain shit going on. It's just not my favorite part of the movie, but it's okay. It's not awful. It's just, I don't know.
But anyways, they're running away and they're swinging. Miles Morales is starting to learn things. Peter B. Parker, he's teaching him the things. But Doc Ock she's got this like saw thing. She's cutting down trees. They're losing ground. And then they get caught in a web. And that's when we meet the fourth version of Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy.
Spider-Woman. We met her earlier because she was like a student at the school where Miles like fucked up her hair with his like sticky hands, which by the way I like how the movie works in like the spider sense. I think that's a good personification, like, you know, because it's like a silly animated comic book like movie. The spider sense stuff makes sense and I think it's nice. But yeah, Spider-Woman, she's cool. She defeats them and they get away. And yeah, it's like Gwen Stacy and she's, you know, she's like, I got into this universe and for some reason I felt like I had to go to the school or whatever. And yeah, so now all three of them are friends.
They're best buddies. They're best budding around,
I suppose.
And they need to they got the hard drive, but now they need to create a new flash drive.
Which by the way, another thing that I think is kind of weird. Like, don't like companies usually have like servers that they have all their stuff on?
Yes.
So I don't understand like taking the computer, like I get the idea, like it's not like that far fetched. Like there probably is something on there that they could use. But I feel like some of the most secret and important stuff that a company like that would have would be like on a secure server at the company there at the location. And if you took the computer, there wouldn't be anything on it for you to access. You know what I mean?
Right. Like it wouldn't be on Doc Ock's individual computer.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I don't know why it would. I mean, I don't think it's like that far fetched or crazy, but that doesn't seem right to me. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm willing to look past it.
Good point. But we overlook it because, again, it's a children's movie about web slinging spider people.
I don't care if it's a children's movie. Like, children aren't dumb, you know, like I'm willing to break it down like any other movie. I know that seems harsh, but whatever, man.
So they need to figure out what to do with this little server thing. So they take it to Aunt May. And this is the Aunt May of the dead.
Her son died.
Peter Parker, yes. Her son died. And she's pretty cool. She's hip. She's with it. She's like a cool old Aunt May who's got shit going on. And they're like, we need help. And she brings them to the spider lair.
Batcave.
It's the Batcave. It's got the little the spider mobile. Do you see that on like the back?
I actually didn't see that.
There's a car. There's a spider mobile.
They also have like it's like an Iron Man Batcave thing where they have like the different Spider-Man outfits. Like that's very, you know.
And then that's when we meet the three other spider people.
Yeah, the different versions of them, like Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider-Ham. I like Spider-Man Noir because of course he is voiced by one of the greatest actors of all time,
Nicolas Cage.
I'm not kidding. So it's good to hear his voice. Penny Parker is like an anime version where like she's like a young girl, but she has like a robot friend with like where the spider is in it.
The spider's in the robot, yeah,
which is interesting. And Spider-Ham, which is like very cartoony version of him, and you know they each have like their own interesting art styles, and they kind of like influence the world that they're in with that. So like it's kind of fun. This is my favorite parts. These are my favorite parts of the movie because it feels like a team together, kind of like an Ocean's 11 thing, which I like, where it's like they're all getting together trying to figure out what to do, which I think I appreciate more. I feel like it took a while to get to this point, which is a little annoying, but I just kind of wish we got to this point a little bit quicker. I just feel like there's so much stuff that happens, like there's so much time that passes before we get to this point. And yeah, I just like the whole team, like working together, interacting with each other. Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does take. I mean, I think we're already an hour or so into the movie before we meet the team comes together. Which I mean, I guess you have to establish Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man. It always surprises me how far into the movie this is. Like when I think back on it, I always think it happens a lot earlier than it does. But honestly, there's not really anything before that I would consider unnecessary or that they should cut out. I mean, I guess maybe you can make the stealing of the server thing a little bit shorter, but
Maybe it should have just been longer.
a longer movie? It's already 2 hours.
Why not?
Because it's a 2 hours kids movie.
All these other movies are like 2.5 hours. Well, how the new Spider-Man movie isn't it like almost 3 hours?
Yeah, I guess
I know it's an animated movie, so it's like harder to make, but still.
that's a good point. I guess the new Spider-Man movie was like 2.5. So yeah, I would have watched more. I could have seen more of it. And then I guess kind of on your point is once the team is there, it does kind of quickly jump towards the end. Like it moves at a much more rapid pace than it did in the first half. I like all the new Spider people. They're all actual. So every Spider person in this world were already comic book characters. So all those like versions had already been written before. I think Peter Porker was first written in 1983.
Yeah, they're all real stuff. They're all real characters.
They're real, which is nice. Like you're actually, I think of all the superhero movies, this one lends itself the most to comic books and definitely I think takes the most from comic books. The anime one, Penny Parker, she was written by the guy who did My Chemical Romance. I don't know that guy's name.
Gerard Way. That's interesting. I didn't know that Gerard Way was a comic book writer. That's interesting.
They're pretty cool. It's a fun series. And then Spider-Man Noir, I don't know a lot about that one, but I do know it exists. So it's nice that they're grabbing from actual comic books and bringing inspiration and the different animation styles, which are it's kind of fun to blend those. I like the idea of Spider-Man Noir being in black and white. So I guess you can only see in black and white.
I think so, yeah. Right, because he looks at the Rubik's Cube, yeah. Which is a funny little joke. Isn't like the new Spider-Man, isn't it basically like just this movie, but it's the movie Spider-Mans, not necessarily the comic book Spider-Mans?
Yeah, so I don't want to spoil too much because I know there's this big move.
I don't give a fuck.
Well, not for you, Andrew. I'm not talking about you. No one fucking cares about you, Andrew.
Spoiler alert for a new Spider-Man movie for people listening.
For our listeners, the ones that actually matter.
Yeah.
The new Spider-Man movie basically is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but live action. Like it's kind of the same thing. I mean, there's no Miles Morales, which is sad. But
because he's not a movie. He's not a movie character.
But it seems like they're gonna bring him in. So, but yeah, it's basically the same thing. They bring back all the bad guys, and then all the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield come back, which is fun. It's fun to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back in as Spider-Man again. I think Tobey Maguire is a more interesting Spider-Man now and a more believable Spider-Man now than he was back when he was playing Spider-Man, which is fun. He's just like an old man playing Spider-Man. And Andrew Garfield, even though the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie's not any good, in my opinion, it's just my personal opinion, it was nice to see him back as Spider-Man, and he does a pretty good job. But I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse does a better job than the new Spider-Man movie does, in my opinion. But I don't know.
They all get together and they all kind of talk about what they have to do, and they're like, okay, one person needs to stay behind in order to destroy the collider, and Miles like, I can do it, like I live here, like I that's fine. But they're like, but they're just like, he lacks experience, like, you know what I mean? They like test him, they beat him up, they like kind of like, they see what they really like, they slap the shit out of him.
Kind of mean.
Yeah, Miles is just like very upset, and he runs away to see his uncle because they test him to see if like he would even be able to attempt to help them in any way. But he's just not confident with his abilities yet,
And so he disappears. He runs away to see his Uncle Aaron, and he's writing him a note, and he hears someone come to the window. So he's freaking out. He hides, and it's the Prowler. And he's like, oh shit, what's the Prowler doing here? And of course there's a reveal. Prowler takes off his fucking mask thing, and it's Uncle Aaron. He's Prowler. He's the bad guy.
Oh my gosh, who would have thought?
Not good.
So now, yeah, so now Miles is like, oh great. And so Miles foolishly goes back to May's house because they show right away that the Prowler knows he's been followed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, it must be Spider-Man. And so Miles foolishly goes back to May's house. He was followed, of course. And Penny has the new drive, so they're ready to go. But then a bunch of bad guys show up.
Bunch of bad guys.
Like all of them do.
All of them. Except Green Goblin. Underutilized bad guy, in my opinion. Like, he's in the beginning and he's in the end, but he should have been. I mean, he would have just killed everybody. He would have done it. It would have just been him. But whatever. They bring back the lizard guy comes. I don't know his name.
Scorpion.
Yeah, Scorpion's there. What's the gray guy?
Tombstone.
Doc Ock's there, and the spider people are fighting which is fun. I think that's a fun scene to watch, kind of their different abilities.
That's a fun scene. Yeah, I thought the action in that scene was good.
Of course, Miles Morales, he doesn't know what to do. He's running around. He's running away.
Yeah, he has no idea, and he's about to kill. Aaron's about to kill Miles, and Miles is like, "Bro, I'm I'm Miles," and he's like, "Oh no." All right, I won't kill you. You're my nephew. I would never kill you. And then Kingpin just shoots him.
If Kingpin is such a great shot, well, I guess Prowler's in front of him. Because why? I guess Prowler is in the way of Miles Morales. Because otherwise, Kingpin would have just shot Spider-Man himself. Because he hates all Spider-Men. All Spider-Men are bad.
Yeah, they all should die.
They all should die. But they kill Uncle Aaron. He's dead.
And Miles is like, oh no. And he like gets him to like an alley, and Aaron's like, yo, look, I'm sorry. But you're doing a good job or whatever. And he's like, okay. And his dad catches them, and he thinks like Spider-Man killed Aaron. And Miles, like, he gets like dealt like such a bad hand in every single way. You know what I mean? It's like he doesn't know his powers well. He almost like ruins his friend's plan. His friends don't like trust in him at all. His uncle dies, and his dad wants to also kill him now because he thinks he killed Aaron. A lot of stuff happens. Like once, like you said, once the team gets together, a lot of happens. Like that whole sequence, like it's pretty good, but like it happens very quickly. The ensuing events.
It's fast, yeah. And so Miles, he feels like shit. So he goes back. He goes back to his dorm. And he just wants to be alone. And all the Spire people come. And they're like, hey, we know how you feel. Which, by the way, in the new Spider-Man, almost the exact same scene. Like, they do the same thing. Like, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield come, and they're like, we get it. I can't remember who dies. Someone dies. Spoilers again. But Aunt May, Tom Holland's Aunt May, dies. She's dead. Killed. Dead. If you're Peter Parker or whatever, someone close to you just has to die. Like, that's just the rule.
Mm-hmm. That's the part of the Spider-Man lore. Each one has like their own little story like that.
The roommate, who ends up being Ned, comes in. So they all like jump to the ceiling and they do like a little crawl around thing. And then Ned sees them, and then they have to like knock him out or something. Put him classic, put him unconscious, but not kill him kind of thing. And then all the other Spider people leave, and it's just Peter B. Parker and Miles. And Miles is like, I gotta do this, there's no reason you should stay. I gotta do my thing. Like, I gotta help you out. And he's like, no, man, you're just not ready. And he like tests him. Like, he goes through like the whole thing. He's like, turn invisible or whatever. And Miles just can't do it. And it's a pretty intense moment. It's sad. It's a sad moment. You're like, damn, poor Miles Morales. He literally cannot catch a break. I mean, this kid's uncle died like 24 hours ago. He also saw his Spider-Man die only like 2 days. Like, this all happens in like a span of a couple of days. Miles Morales, he's just been beaten around. He's not having a good week. And Peter B. Parker's just like, you're just not ready, man. So he puts him in all the web things, and then they all leave, and they're all sad because they wanted him to like fight back, but Miles Morales wasn't ready, and they're all sad, and they're swinging away. And then his dad comes. Miles Morales' dad comes, and he's on the other side of the door. He's like, sad news, and there's like a touching moment. They're like, a father-son thing. But of course, Miles Morales can't talk because he's got like a little web thing on his mouth. And it's sad. It's a sad moment.
But the conversation inspires Miles to the point where he now has his abilities out of nowhere. and he does a thing where he makes his own, his own Spider-Man costume. That's his own style. And he's able to turn invisible and do everything that he wants to. And yeah, he's just it inspires him, and he is able to be his own individual Spider-Man guy. He's completely his own, and he has control now.
Yeah, he does his own little Spider-Man montage, which I love the Spider-Man montage. I love that moment where he jumps off the building and it's like he's falling, but it's like upside down. You know what I'm talking about? That's my favorite scene in the movie. It just looks really cool.
That stuff's good. Yeah,
It's
I
fun.
like that stuff quite a bit.
Kind of talking about the music a bit. I can't think it's kind of like hit or miss. Like I think there's some real bops in there.
I don't like the pop songs at all. I think all the pop songs suck. I think the score is pretty good. The instrumental score is good, but I don't really care much for like the Post Malone pop songs or a lot of the pop songs in there. I don't really care.
There's a Biggie song which works, and there's some other stuff that works.
I don't care. It feels thrown in.
It feels a bit pandering most of the time.
He's New York City. He's New York City rap.
New York City, baby.
New York City, the greatest fucking city in the world. That's the city the movie takes place in.
But one thing that I did learn about the music is the way they recorded it is they recorded the music and then they put it onto vinyl and then they converted the vinyl back into the soundtrack. So they actually hired a professional DJ to like scratch. So like all the scratches in it are actual like they went and scratched it, which I think is cool.
Do you mean the score?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like every time they like they like put it on vinyl and then they recorded the vinyl and like scratched it like live as they were going through it, which I think sounds cool. I think it works. It's fun.
I like the score, but it seems like a lot of work. So
seems like
I didn't notice. Like I don't know. Like I don't know. Like that's cool, I guess. But that's like I feel like people do things in movies just to like have people like read it. I mean, I like high effort, but that feels like a little too much. Like that kind of made me hate it more. So it's just kind of like, who cares? I don't care. I don't care if you did that. Who cares? Like if the movie works with the music, then like why do we need to? I don't know. I'm being mean.
Hey man, you are. I mean, but yeah, I agree. It's kind of like when Leonardo DiCaprio, right? He ate raw meat for The Revenant. Can you need to do that?
Yeah, like shut up. Who cares?
Like, you just want the Oscar.
Shut up.
But whatever. They did it. And Miles Morales, he's there. But he's Spooderman now. He's got it. He's there. And
yeah, he did
now all the other spider people are gonna break into Kingpin's party gala. And of course they're all dressed up as Spider-Man, so they just put on bow ties.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, they walk in. That whole scene where they break in is really funny. That scene should have been longer. Like I said, I like the team when they're like working together and interacting with each other. That's fun. That's legitimately fun.
And Peter B. Parker meets not his version of MJ, but the MJ from that universe. And she just wants some bread. And he it's one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, that part's pretty funny too. Yeah.
He failed to get her bread, man.
Because she thinks he's a waiter. Yeah, so now I think after that scene where they kind of do like the little Ocean's 11 thing, I think now we get to like the Collider battle. It's the big superhero final fight scene. That's pretty much what it is. Everybody fights everybody. Miles, of course, comes in at the right time, and they're like, oh my God, he's here. He's awesome. He did it. He saves people. He's ready to help them. It's a big moment. Everybody's able to return, I think. Everybody jumps in the thing.
They all jump in the thing.
And then Miles and Kingpin have to fight a while before he's able to shut it down, I believe.
Yes, there's real fisticuffs.
Kingpin like jumping around and stuff is so funny. It's I was distracted at that one part where like they're fighting and then Spider-Man jumps onto the train and then he just appears.
Kingpin appears like inside the train. Yeah, like how to get into the train.
How did he get into the train so quickly? Did he jump? Did he run?
With his little tiny legs?
He was on a completely other different like thing. They were fighting and then he gets onto the train. Miles it takes him like 2 seconds to like, quickly get onto it. And then Kingpin just like appears right next to him. It's like, how did he get there? Like, that's just what the heck happened?
Yeah, one of my biggest complaints with this movie is I don't really want to see Kingpin fight because he doesn't have any superpowers like everyone else. Like,
he's just big.
He's just a big guy. He's supposed to be like, I'm fine with him being like the mastermind behind the whole thing. Like, that's cool. but like have someone else fight. And I get it's supposed to be like a moment of like, you're fighting arch nemesis or whatever, but like it doesn't, even though Miles Morales is only been Spider-Man for like 2 days, like Kingpin has no superpowers. He can't swing from
I
webs.
guess he's unusually strong.
Is he?
That's a superpower. I mean, I don't know. He's like when he like punches people and stuff, it seems like he's like supposed to be like extremely strong.
I guess so.
Uh,
Maybe.
I don't know.
Unclear.
Maybe we're wrong that he doesn't have superpowers. Like maybe he has maybe he has a backstory where like something happened and he's just unusually strong or something.
Yeah, I guess that could be it.
But I don't know much about him. But yeah, he's more like a mob
Yeah.
boss, like a Martin Scorsese. Like,
But they're fighting, and his family shows up, Kingpin's family, and he's like, I gotta get you back. Like I gotta reach you. But of course, even in all the other universes, still hate him. Like they they hate Kingpin in all the universes. This man cannot catch a break.
yeah, his plan is completely destroyed, and so he attempts to kill Miles, but his dad's there. Miles' dad's is there, and he's like, "Come on, Spider-Man, get up and get him!" And he does get up. He beats up Kingpin, and using the power of love, he's able to destroy the Collider.
He destroys the Collider.
Yeah, his dad, Miles' dad, he's like, "Oh, Spider-Man, you're a hero. I shouldn't have doubted you. I'm sorry." And Kingpin, is arrested, and I know they're bad guys, and of course he doesn't know it's Miles. And then yeah, you get like a little montage where Miles is like, he's the new Spider-Man, right? He's the new Spider-Man in New York City because the other one died, and he's chilling. He's now confident in his abilities. But he's like a young teenage boy. He's got his own style. He's got his own way of doing things. Because the whole movie, he's just completely like beside himself. He can't do anything. And then by the end, he's the man.
He's the Spider-Man. He's Spooderman. He did it. Then, of course, the movie ends on a cliffhanger because we have to have sequels. So many sequels. And it ends with, you can't just end. You gotta have all of the Spider-Man movies forever. So it ends with a little, like, someone from another universe. Gwen shows up. She doesn't show up, but you hear her voice, and there's a blue thing. Thus, Spider-Man Across the Universe, Part 1. Come out in 2022.
Final thoughts, Austin?
I love this movie. I have so much fun watching this movie. This is the only movie I've ever seen in theaters twice. Well, not the only movie. It's one of the very few movies I've seen in theaters twice. I saw it almost back to back. Like I saw it in December when it came out, and I saw it like a month later. I enjoyed the experience every time. I think it's fun. I think it's funny. The animation is just awesome. It's cool. It's interesting. It's unique. It has its own thing going on. I love all the different versions of Spider-Man. I do wish there was more of the team. Like I'd love to see more of Spider-Man Noir. I'd love to see more of Penny Parker and Peter Porker and all those other people. I'm super excited for the new one. I really don't have any complaints. I'm not a huge fan of the final fight scene. Like I think it runs a little long. Like it runs like 20-ish minutes, which it feels a little long, honestly, in retrospect. But it's a good time. It's fun. I'm excited for the new one. So I'm gonna give this film a solid 9 out of 10.
I think I ended up liking it more than I thought I would. For me, a movie like this, it's just not really for me. It's just kind of like more like a kiddie movie, which I don't really care too much for. Anybody can enjoy it, and I enjoyed it, of course. But yeah, like you said, good animation style, look good. I don't really have any complaints there. Miles is a good character. He's fun. You root for him the whole time. Like you said, the team is good. More of that stuff would have been nice. There are certain parts I wish there were less of. There's some parts I wish there were more of. At the end of the day, though, like when I watch it, I'm like, okay, this is good, but I just can't seem to like really connect with it on a very powerful level. Like I just can't really seem to feel very inspired by it, or just I don't know. But it's definitely like I definitely appreciate the colorful and vivid style compared to like a stupid like Eternals, drab nightmare that you might watch. This feels way more appropriate, especially for a Spider-Man movie. So yeah, definitely not a bad movie at all. Good, enjoyable. Not really a movie for me, I think, but I can't doubt that it's just pretty solid. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Next week, we will be watching Princess Mononoke, a Hayao Miyazaki classic, Andrew's pick. We're all very excited. Please tune in. Thank you for listening. You can find me at AustinLugo12.
You can find me at Twitter at ADHarp24. You can also find me on Letterboxd at RetroAndrew, RETR0Andrew.
And you can find this podcast wherever you hear podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram at YouTube at With Nothing to Say Podcast. You can also find anything we're doing here at the company at Life Through Fictions at lifethroughfiction.com. And thank you once again to Shannon, our amazing editor. And thank you all for listening.